Hi guys, Lokesh here from SQL for All. So welcome to chapter 3 of this video tutorial series. In earlier videos, we have discussed why it is important to learn SQL and how it can benefit your career. And also we have learned the basic concepts such as tables, databases. So let's dive into some of the practical aspects of the SQL Server. We'll be discussing about the tools that we use in order to learn SQL, and then we'll be getting comfortable or familiar with all these tools, and then we'll be jumping into writing queries and all the scripting stuff. So before we begin all those things, it is important to understand the installation of SQL Server. Once you install SQL Server, you have two different tools or flavors. One is a SQL Server and the other one is SSMS, which stands for SQL Server Management Studio. Now, the SQL Server is a service that runs on the physical machine on which you install a SQL Server. It holds databases, tables, so it has a physical storage to it, whereas the SSMS is a software which runs on any machine and which is used to communicate with your underlying SQL Server. Now, the SQL Server can be in your local database or in your local machine. I'm sorry, not in your local database, in your local machine, and it can be on a remote machine. So, with the help of internet or with the help of TCP/IP, what you can do is you can connect your SSMS to a SQL server which is either sitting on the local machine or it is residing on a different machine. And with that, you can communicate with the data that is stored inside the SQL server. You will be writing queries in SSMS, but the data itself will reside on a SQL server, which can be remote or which can be local. We now have the ability to store data into the cloud as well, but let's not touch that part because the things will become or look very complicated. Another thing that we need to understand is the relationship between a SQL Server instance, a database, and tables. Now, the SQL Server can hold plenty of databases. All the databases sit inside a SQL Server instance, and each database can contain n number of tables. So it's very important if you understand this relationship, it will make the job very easier for you. So having said that, now let's come on to the installation part of how you can install SQL Server from internet. So first of all, you need to have the internet connection in order to do this. So what we'll be doing is we'll be going to the google.com and we'll simply write SQL Server 2006 download. Now once you hit enter, the first site that you can see is SQL Server downloads, and it's a Microsoft site. I have already downloaded the SQL Server 2016 version, but I have uninstalled it so that I can teach you each of the steps involved in installing a SQL Server right from the beginning. So once you click on this, now this is the latest version of SQL Server 2016, which gives you the provision of downloading a free developer version. So you can see we have three versions: free trial version, we have a developer version, and we have an express edition. So let's download the developer edition because all the things that we want to do can be achieved with the developer edition. I think it's a good kind of initiative taken by the Microsoft to give us a developer edition, because all the developers or all the people who have started on their journey to learn SQL can benefit from it. So we'll click on download now. So meanwhile the file is getting downloaded, I just wanted to discuss about the history of the editions of SQL Server that Microsoft has launched over the past 10 to 15 years. They started with SQL 2000 and then they moved on to SQL 2005. Then we had 2008 R2, followed by 2012. Then we have the very important edition of SQL 2014, and the latest one that you will be working or that you will be using is 2016. So out of all these editions, I would say 2008 and 2008 R2 are the most widely used across various industries and companies. So it's not important as of now to go through the various features that they have or the Microsoft have introduced into the various versions. But it's good to have information sometimes when you are done with the SQL Server learning and you're appearing for any of the interviews. It would be very beneficial for you. So you can take a screenshot of this. So the exe file has been installed. So all you have to do is just go into the folder where the exe file was installed or has got installed. Double click on it and it will ask for the credentials or the permission. Just click on yes. So it's trying to prepare for the installation process. So as you can see, you are getting three options: basic, custom, and download. So we'll go for the custom edition. Why we are going for this edition is because we want to install all the features that are available in SQL Server 2016. And it's asking for now, it's asking for the location of the file. So we can give the default location of C folder and then click on install. So it is just preparing for the installation process to begin. And finally, let me bring down the window a little bit and scroll it to the middle. And finally, you can see a setup or a SQL Server Installation Center window has come up. Now it has various options such as planning, installation, maintenance, tools, resources, advanced options. But don't worry about all of these as of now. What we want to do is we want to install the SQL Server 2016. So what we'll do is we'll click on installation, and when you click on installation you'll get various sub options. You can see the first option is new SQL Server standalone installation, and then the second one is install SQL Server management tools. So what it means is if you already have some parts of the SQL Server installed, you can use various of the other options to install to install the other options. But if you don't have SQL Server at all on your system, we'll preferably go for the first option. That is, what we want to do is we want to install a new SQL Server standalone installation with all of the features. So when you click on this, it will take you to the next window. We'll just wait for the window to come up. So once you reach to the install rules window, just click on next. Then again click on next. And now it is asking for a product key as well as a free edition option. So as Microsoft has given this edition specifically for the developers, we need not purchase it because SQL Server comes very expensive. It's not cheaper at all. But we are thankful to the Microsoft that they've given a developer edition so that we can play around and learn this. So we will click on the developer edition and then again click on next. You just have to accept the license terms and then click on next, and just keep on clicking next. Then you will reach this point or this step which gives you the option of selecting all the SQL Server features that you want to install. As SQL 2016 is a very robust feature, that which means you will be getting a lot of options. But don't be intimidated by these. Just click on select all. So what we want to do is we want to install all the available features, so that when we want to research or do learning on any of the features, we can do. So we don't have to reinstall all of the other features. We can take the help of only a single installation. And then you need to click on next. Now this is a very important step. You can name your SQL Server instance with whatever name you want, or it will pick up the default name of MS SQL Server. So let's name it, and let's give it a name of SQL 2016. So this is particularly useful when you have more than one instance of SQL Server running on your machine. So if you have a SQL Server 2012, 14, and 16, you will not be able to distinguish if you go for a default name. So it's very important to give name as per your choice, so that you can remember it in the future references or purposes. So after giving the name, you need to click on next. Then again click on next. Another important feature or step over here is of authentication mode. This is, in short, a security feature that SQL Server says that you can select. If you go for a Windows authentication, that means whatever credentials that you have logged in using Windows, same will be used in order to connect to or in order to enter the SQL Server. But if you want some of the other users to use the SQL Server in your machine, you can give a SQL Server authentication. In that respect, or in that case, what you will be doing is you will be giving, or you will be generating a username for a particular user, and then you will be giving that username and password to that user to access the SQL Server that resides in your machine. So we want both of the options, so let's click on mix mode. Or what you can do is, I will suggest you to go for Windows authentication mode as of now, not to complicate things, because this is just for your learning as of now. Once you become familiar, or once you become experienced in this, then you can go for the mix mode. So then we'll click on next. So we forgot to add the current user, so we need to add the current user over here. And once you click on the add current user, it will take its time and add my credentials to the SQL Server. So it is what we are doing with this step is we are saying the SQL Server that this user, that is INLSSHUM03, has the rights to access it. So if we request for the access of any database or the SQL Server, or to get into the SQL Server, please allow this particular user. Then we'll click on next. So don't worry about this as of now. We'll go for multi-dimensional and data mining mode. Again, I forgot to add the current user. We need to do it at each of these steps. Again, don't worry about these options. Add current user. So wherever it asks for the permission, just click on the add current user. Click on next. You need to accept the terms and conditions. So after this is done, again click on next, and then at the very end click on install. So now this installation is going to take time. So we'll come back again when the installation is done. So we are back. The installation was successful. So after the installation is complete, what you have to do is you have to restart your system. And once you restart your system, just go to the search text box over here and type in SQL Server Management Studio. So it's very important you become familiar with this tool. I think majority of the time you'll be working with SQL Server Management Studio. It has a lot of features, a lot of capabilities, but we'll start with gradual things. We'll start to learn some of the basic things. So now as you can see, it is asking for the server type, server name, and authentication. So before we do anything, as I told you earlier in this chapter as well, that when you install SQL, it is installed as a SQL Server service, and the other version that gets installed is SSMS. So now you have opened SSMS, but you need to check whether the services are running at the back end for us to be able to connect to a database. So for that purpose, what we will do is there is a shortcut to open the services window, and we can do it with the help of services.msc. As soon as you type it, it will bring up the window for all the services that are currently running in your system. Now what we need to check is whether the SQL Server service is running or not. So we'll simply type SQ and let's sort it by name so that it is easier to find. And this is the service that you need to know or that you're concerned about. And also recall that when we installed SQL Server, we changed the name of the instance to SQL 2016, and that is why you're able to see in brackets SQL 2016. Although the service is automatic, but it is not running currently. So what happens when the service is not running? I'll just demonstrate you what happens with that. So we'll come back to the SQL Server Management Studio, that is SSMS, and we will see that this window is asking for the server type. Now if we want to learn SQL Server, I mean the querying part of it, it's better to leave this as a database engine. And then it is asking for the server name. Now in case of default instances, the server name is the name of your computer. But if it is not a default name, and if you have given another name to the SQL Server instance, for example in our case we have given it SQL 2016, so the server name would be the computer name slash the instance name. Now in order to verify that we have typed the right computer name, all we need to do is we need to go to the My Computer or this PC option and right click on top of it and go to Properties. And when you go to the properties, you can see that the computer name is correct. So we have typed in the correct computer name and we have typed in the correct instance name as well. And then the third option is of authentication. Again, if you recall, I talked about two types of authentications. One was the Windows authentication and the other one was mixed mode. And we chose the Windows authentication, so that means that whosoever who is the admin of the Windows will be able to access the SQL Server or will be able to get into the SQL Server. So when this window comes up, all you need to do is need to click on Connect after you have verified all these details. So click on Connect and an error will pop up. We'll just wait for the error to come up. So what it is doing is, so this is SSMS is a software which is trying to connect to a SQL Server service at the back end. Now what we have done is we have checked previously that the SQL Server service is not running, and hence you get an error. So you can read the details of this error, but this error is basically because the services are not running. So it is very important that the SQL Server services are running in order for us to connect to that service or the databases that are sitting inside the SQL Server. So right click on the services or the service, then click on Start. So it will take its time, and you can see that the status now has changed to running. So that means that the services have been enabled or are running on your system. Now what you need to do is need to connect again, click on connect again, and there you go. So it means you are able to enter into a SQL server with the help of SSMS. So it's very important to understand this. SSMS is your software application that you'll be using, and SQL Server is a service which runs on a machine. So once you are able to connect to the SQL Server service, you will be able to see this window. On the left side, you can see that it is the SQL Server instance and instance name, and you have the databases options in it, and then you have various of the folders. So don't worry about these options as of now. We'll cover one option at a time. So this is it. I guess, or I hope that you have followed along with the video and able to install SQL Server on your machine. So I'm sure you must be very excited now to start writing the queries, but we have one or two basic concepts more in order to get into that part. So stay tuned and join me in the next chapter. Thank you.